Hello, everybody in the Boss Hole Transformation Nation. Sarah Best here, your co-host. I'm flying solo today as my ever-popular, always amazing partner, John Brower, is out in the field doing amazing keynotes and facilitating sessions, and he's flying all over the place this week. Excited to share who we have as a guest today, a subject matter expert. His name is Chad Gono. What I love about Chad is he makes a healthy organization his business. So as an 11-year leader of a 52-year-old company called Regal Plastics in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Chad has significantly increased their bottom line like by $30 million. They've tripled the size of their company, and he spends 50 to 60 hours a week focusing only on how to create a healthy organization. And if you go to LinkedIn, and in the show notes, you're going to see some links to his posts, to his new recently launched newsletter on LinkedIn. This is a guy who has something to say. And what he has to say is all about how to be a leader who facilitates and creates a healthy organization. You're going to hear shades of the Patrick Lencioni themes in what Chad talks about. Excited to share this with you. So let's dig in.
The Boss Hole Chronicles are brought to you by Real Good Ventures, a talent optimization firm helping organizations diagnose their most critical people and execution issues with world-class analytics. Make sure to check out all the resources in the show notes and be sure to follow us and share your feedback. Enjoy today's episode.
So Chad, we are so fortunate to have you with us today. Thank you for being here.
Of course. Thank you.
I think it would be important for our listeners to first just understand a little bit about your journey. Like, how did you end up in the seat you're in now? And how did you develop such a passion and a voice for leadership?
Yeah, great question. So we are a 53-year-old company. My grandfather started in 1971, and we are third generation. I never wanted to do this growing up. It was just that yucky place that my parents worked. After 10 years of dabbling in entrepreneurship and doing some really cool stuff, I wanted to be back in Dallas. So I came here and started working for the family business. And it was not a successful business in terms of profitability. And there was not really any vision. I worked here as sales for a couple of years, but like anybody else does, you get frustrated. But because of who I was able to get frustrated enough to where I was like, I'm going to start working on this thing. And I had no idea about leadership or running a company or vision or core values or purpose or any of that stuff. And so you just start doing what anybody else would do, is you start reading, and read Jim Collins, you read Built to Last, you read Good to Great. And my life changed with that, reading these unbelievable companies and what they were able to do over a 15-year period. And what really stuck out with me with those books was the values and the purpose, and the fact that, like, listen, like, you got to have a reason why you do this that has nothing to do with money or profits. And look at these other companies. They're some of the greatest companies of all time.
Yeah.
They believed in this stuff that had nothing to do with the money or even the price. Like, why are we even here? And that stuff stuck to me. And so in formulating basically the new company and revamping this entire business, I went through the process of basically over a 4-year period, letting go like 80 of our employees. These are the people that were the wrong types of people. These were the apathetic people and people that just didn't align with our core values. We created those core values through that period. And once we realized, like, listen, it's one thing Jim Collins says is like, right, you got to get the wrong people off the bus.
Mm-hmm.
You got to get the right people on the bus, and then you got to get them in the right seat of the bus. And so we started doing that. And then we started really creating the new vision for the company. And when that started happening and we started getting all these amazing people that did line up with those core values, and then we developed that purpose and that they did believe in that purpose, then that's where my, leadership just kind of like, it started taking off because of the people that are around me, the atmosphere. I wasn't always like this. Maybe it was inside of me, but it was all these amazing people. It was all of us that we really came up with work doesn't have to suck. And
yes,
how important that is for us as a company. And that's really what's taken us from the company that we were, $13 million, and then adding $30 million to top line revenue over the course of the last 5 years, quadrupling the size of the company. It's been because of culture, values, and purpose. We didn't change anything else other than the fact that we became a really healthy company.
There you go. Wow. And the healthy part, how that supersedes everything else. And that has been your focus. So do you remember the first time you posted something on LinkedIn that was a true, like a leadership message? Do you remember when that first happened?
Before COVID, I got into like, there was an influencer, her name is Shay Rowbottom. She's on LinkedIn, and I saw a few videos and she offered a class. I took that class and I was like, man, I got something to say. I want to talk about our experience in some way. I just feel like this is the avenue. I'm not going to do it on Instagram. I'm not going to do it on Facebook or TikTok. I was like, I want to do this on LinkedIn because this is where the business people are and this is where my voice is. I have something to say. So I took her class, and she was basically like, listen, you just got to give value. Just give value and give value. There's something that you have experienced that is really valuable. Just put that out in the world for free and just generate a bunch of trust. The difference with me and everybody else, I didn't have anything to sell. It was not like I was trying to generate a business out of it. It was just out of passion. And so it was basically January of 2020. Then COVID hits. Nobody saw that coming. And so everybody's like basically stuck in their houses. And so I had a lot of time to basically post, and I did. And it's an evolution. But it's the funny thing is like, you post and you post and you post 4 years of posting. And then all of a sudden, like, wow, you have a lot of followers and people are really relating to this. But I posted for like 3 years before anybody even noticed anything.
Right. And if any of our listeners are unfamiliar, you need to go to LinkedIn. You need to type in Chad Gono, Gono, in your search bar, and you'll have access to this encyclopedia. We were talking before the recording here today. It's like a playbook. It's a playbook for leadership and for a healthy organization. And it's rich. And along with that, you just launched a newsletter where you actually get to take a little more time to unpack some of these ideas that you've tried, that they're tested, and they've gotten you results inside your organization.
Yes. What I want to do with that is go deeper than just the quick punch. And it's going to be really a lot of stories from me about the company and the experiences that we've gone through from the very beginning, trying to figure it out, because there's no blueprint to this thing. There's no blueprint to life. We're all just trying to figure it out.
That's right.
But there's been mentors and books that have helped along the way. And then add that to these experiences. And so I'm just going to share a lot of that. And one thing that I'm also going to do is I am going to share a lot of our employees' stories. Like, they're going to write some of this stuff from their perspective of what work doesn't have to suck and working in this atmosphere means to them, right? Rather than just have it in my voice, I'm going to give it to them sometimes. I've got emails from these guys. I mean, they're going to be able to write about what work doesn't have to suck from their point of view, right? Not just from me. And I think that that's going to be impactful as well. But you're right. It's to be able to go deeper. It was a challenge I had this year as my 1 year goal personal is like, man, you got to get out there and start writing a newsletter, a longer form, something that's a little bit more substantial than just those quick posts.
Yeah, I was really struck with the content of your first newsletter, and I really look forward to the other ones. And if we looked at your banner on LinkedIn, work doesn't have to suck. And that truly is the driving force behind it's your purpose. It's your company purpose. So we'll make sure we put a link to the newsletter in there, to your LinkedIn site. What you are putting out there in our world is boss hole prevention. These are tips and ideas and actionable items, ways of thinking, ways of approaching things as a leader that prevent you from sliding into the boss hole zone. And that's the whole reason we created this podcast is we want to tell stories about what works and stories about how to not be the not best version of yourself. And so I'm just grateful, for this content. Then you talked about employees telling their story. Well, the post that really caught my eye, I've been hunting you down for a while. The post that caught my eye was about 2 weeks ago. And you talked about one of your amazing employees is leaving. And you actually posted the message he gave you and sent to you as he was exiting the organization. And the little note you show in the picture, be the reason someone feels welcome, seen, heard, valued, and loved. I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So just in short, this gentleman is talking about 3 years, only 3 years. But his question was like, how can 3 years in a company be the best 3 years of my life? And knowing that he left inspired, he said, a company can change your life. I'm inspired that leaders make you feel valued. They know you. They make me a better father and a better partner, and they make the world a better place. So I think that's a really good place to start. Can you jump back to that post if you recall what your thoughts were about it?
Absolutely. This is Mariano, and he was an operations manager for us in San Antonio. He's been working with us for 3 years, and he has his family business. And they approached him over this Christmas holidays and was like, this thing is not good, and we need you to take it over. And so he left us to go do that. But there was such joy in having him leave the company and go pursue work doesn't have to suck to another 60 people.
Yes.
Because that's why we exist. Like, work doesn't have to suck is literally why our organization exists. Like, when I sit down with our teams and I talk about state of the company address, I don't start with numbers. I talk about like, why are we here? Why do we exist? Work doesn't have to suck. And when Mariano wrote that email to our leadership team, it was everything that we're about said in that email. He said, all I did was walk through this door, right? I could have walked through any door of business, but 3 years ago, I started walking in this door. Nothing in my life changed other than the place that I worked. And now I'm a better mom, dad, brother, sister, friend, daughter, whatever it is, right?
Yes.
That is literally what we're all about. Because we're like, listen, if you come to work and you love what you do and you love who you do it with, and you feel like you have a voice and you can make an impact and you make a good living, good money, and you have time off for other hobbies and friends and family and other things in your life, like, you're going to really like your job. Like, you're going to be like, man, I like this place, and when you leave work, you're going to leave work with a smile on your face. And because of that, you're going to be a better person. You're going to go impact the other people in your life positively. And like, that's really what it's all about, because we've all had a bad boss. We've all had a bad job. I have. And you spend so much time, it filters into the rest of your life. And you take that home with you. And that's what we're all about. So it's like, that's why I preach this. And that's why I'm like, if every company in the world thought this way, not only is it good for the numbers, but if every company thought this way, just genuine of their heart, is like, okay, this world would be a much better place, because we're filling cups. We're not draining them. And it's like, it works for everybody. It works from a bottom line standpoint. It works from a top line standpoint, and it works for your people. It works for everybody. And that's what we've noticed. And that's why I want to shout this. Like, it works for ownership too. My mom is our owner, but like, we're making 20 times more bottom line profitability than we were when I first got here.
Right.
And it's just because we've poured into the intentionality of healthy teams. Work doesn't have to suck, and all the stuff I just said.
Well, and I'm sure there are leaders listening who fret. They wish and they hope, they want to become healthy. They want to have a healthy organization. They want to be a place where work doesn't suck, but they don't know how to do that. They don't know how to shift. And your thoughts, I think, are powerful guides. I'm going to start with one. And for this part, you and I talked about this in advance, but there's so many great one-liners and nuggets and phrases. I grabbed some, from your post, and I thought, I'll just fire one at you. You share your thoughts in response.
Love it.
How about this one? Attitude is more important than resume.
Good one. Okay. We've realized this. We don't really look at the resume. We really just look at the attitude of the person. Like, we created our core values, and then we hire based off of those core values. We're not like, well, you have to be a really good outside salesperson to get a job to be an outside salesperson here at Regal Plastics. It's like, no, you just have to be the right type of person. All in and play to win is one core value. Courageously candid is a second one of our core values. And learn, improve, grow is a third core value. And we're also looking for humility, genuine, down to earth. This stuff matters, but I still do a good amount of our interviews. And when I interview applicants, I am not looking at the resume. Of course, I'm looking at a few things like making sure they haven't had 27 jobs in the last 2 years. But generally speaking, I'm just like, okay, let's talk about who you are not what you do, because we can train you to be a good sales representative. We can train you, even be a good manager. We can train these things. And so we look for the person, we look for the heart, we look for the alignment with our core values. And that has worked so tremendously for us. So it's like that we get those people, and now we really try to only promote those people. Like our managers, we want to only promote from within the organization because that has worked so well. Yeah.
The promoting from within is rich. So you hire for the heart, and I'll say the head too. You don't look at the briefcase necessarily, meet the minimum criteria, but you hire for the heart, and you hire for how the person will do the work. You use behavioral analytics in part of your selection of people, and that gets the whole person. I love that. Bosses, admit your mistakes.
Oh, I mean, this is just humility. I mean, there's so many bosses out there that just think that they have to have all the right answers, and it's just not true. We are a team, and I stink at a lot of things, but I'm great at some things. And every single individual is like that. You want to know how not to lead? Think that you have all the answers. You got to admit your mistakes, and you got to be outward. This develops so much trust because it's vulnerable. Like, you have to be vulnerable and genuine and real with your people. They will never trust you. They will never follow you because they will think like this person's not normal. Like, because we're all humans. We all make mistakes. We don't know all the answers, but for whatever reason, so many bosses out there think that they have to have all the answers because maybe that's what the media or TV or movie, I don't know where they've gotten this from over the years, but it's actually not true at all. What actually helps leadership is like being like, I have no idea, guys. What do you guys think?
Right.
That opens everything up. We are a team. With me, I might be in front of the camera, but that's about all I'm like, let's facilitate. And early on in my career, it was all about me. It was my ego, and it was all about, I got to have all the right answers. And you guys listen to me. And I realized how that was so wrong. And nowadays it's like, I'm just facilitating because honestly, these guys are way better than me at like 99% of the stuff that goes on in the company. I'm just good at like taking it and then talking to you about it on a podcast. Like, that's what I'm good at. But all the other stuff, they're the best at. And so you got to admit your mistakes. Humility is a huge deal, and being vulnerable with one another and admitting your mistakes is the essence of vulnerability. And that's where you build the trust. You cannot have a healthy team if you do not have abundance of trust.
Well said. How to kill company culture. Reward high-performing toxic team members.
Okay, so this is a good one. So there's 4 quadrants. So there's values on one line, performance on another line. And so what we're saying is, it's like the 4 quadrants. There's rats, terrorists, puppies, and rock stars. Okay.
I just watched this video. I'm going to get a link and put it in the show notes so our people can see it.
Yes. And so, I mean, rats are easy, right? Rats you get rid of because they don't perform and they don't line up with the values of the organization. That's easy. They shouldn't be there. Then you've got rock stars. They perform incredibly and they line up with the values of the organization, right? The rock stars, that's what you want. Here are the 2 things, the 2 quadrants that are the most important quadrants, right? Here's the one quadrant that most companies fail at. It's the person that is the high performing yet toxic employee. They do not line up with your values, yet they perform incredibly. And so they are allowed to stay in the organization because the results that they come up, the money, that's what, the sales, right? That's what matters. But in essence, what they're doing is they're deteriorating the team that's around them. They're creating this havoc within the organization, just like a terrorist. And what we've noticed, and I've had situations here, I'm not even joking. We've had situations where I had to let go terrorists, and I have done this at a branch, and it cost us $500,000 to the bottom line over a 2-year period.
Wow.
But looking at it 5 years later, it's 4 times that in the positive. We made the decision to fire the toxic employees. And even though the results were good, it was the right thing to do in the end because the team has stepped up and it has turned itself around. Like, we have experience, like, it's hard to do. People don't want to do it.
Right.
Bosses don't want to do it. Companies want to do it because they're worried about the short term. But we have to look at things with a long-term mindset, and keeping toxic employees that perform, there's just, in the long term, it just makes no sense. And so we look for puppies. Puppies are the people that they don't line up with, they line up with your values, but they're just not performing yet, and you're coaching them into rock stars. And so that's who we're hiring. We're always looking for puppies. These people, they're just like, man, they line up with the values. They believe in your purpose. They love what you're all about. And you just coach them up into rock stars. And so that's what we look to hire. We look to hire those puppies. Make sure you get those terrorists out of the organization because they're wrecking havoc and they're just depleting all the people that are around them. And what we've noticed too is that whenever we get rid of them, everybody else just steps up the game.
Yes.
And it really is just kind of like, that's okay. Everybody else just steps up and it ends up working out. It's always worked out for me over the course of the last 10 years here at Regal. Every single time we've gotten rid of it, we have 8 different divisions. That branch or division has gotten better within a 1 to 2 year period. It happens pretty quickly. The rebound, even if you lose some of the numbers, it's back on it. And all of them right now are doing much better than they did when they had toxic performers.
I think it's wise counsel you're providing I know there are managers and supervisors and leaders who have all the reasons in the world to keep somebody, the becauses, but you're giving us solid business case.
Well, you have to stand for something. You have to stand for something.
That's
stand for something.
Yeah.
And your people see that and they're dude, I want to work here. I want to stay here with these leaders because they stand for something. Like when you don't stand for anything other than the money, they're going to leave. Like these other people around, they're like, dude, I know what this place is all about. Yep. Your people are not inspired by just money and revenue and profits. They're inspired when you do the right thing, when you make their life better, when you pour into them. And you know how you do that? You get rid of that toxic high performer that's right next to them, sucking the life out of them every day.
So that leads me to another one that I loved. It's about compassion and empathy, but it starts with empathy. You have a couple of them that are that way.
So if you do not show empathy and compassion to your employees, you will not be a successful leader. When I talked about this, it was more along the lines of like, there's a lot of bosses out there that are like, employees aren't loyal anymore. These young kids, they're not loyal. Nobody's loyal anymore. Those same employers are like, sorry, you don't have any more PTO, figure it out. You can't figure it out. Like there's no compassion, right? There's no empathy for their situation. And the whole point is this, like, we're all humans. And I've had some really tough time in my life, right? Like my wife and I couldn't get pregnant, and we had in vitro for our first 2 babies. That was a very hard time in my life. I needed people there close to me to help me through this time. My wife's side too. We all go through things, and our people, our employees, they go through things, right? You get a bad diagnosis from a family member, or, your car doesn't start, or you're having anxiety attacks and you don't know why. Your kids are getting sick. Like things are happening all the time. We don't know what's going on at home with our employees. We just don't. What we can do to create some loyalty around here is to actually emphasize with them and say, listen, I understand. It's okay. Go home, figure it out. You're okay. We're going to be okay for the next few days while you need some downtime to go through this really hard time. It's going to be okay. That is how you build trust as a leader. They start to believe in you because they're like, this person actually cares about me, not just what I produce here at work, but they care about me and my soul and my heart, and they care about my family, and they want me as the human being to be good, not just produce more, sell more. There's a soulfulness that has to come with business, and great leaders understand that. And when they're like that with their employees, they create trust and they create that loyalty. And that's why we don't have employees that leave here. I can't tell you the last time we had an employee leave this company for a reason that this place sucked. Like Mariano left for a great reason, to go push that thing. We just don't have people that leave this company. I think we've had 4 employees leave in the last 3 years, and we have 105 employees. Because we really intentionally care about this stuff. And we have a leadership retreat every year with all of our leaders. And we really, really coach and we preach this stuff. We're like, guys, we're all going to be in that situation down in that valley at some point. And it really sucks when a boss doesn't really care and they're like, get me that. I don't really care. It's really amazing when a boss does care and they are empathetic. They are like, hey, just whenever you can, even if it takes a couple weeks, I understand you've got some stuff going through your life. It's going to be okay. I think that stuff really matters.
I agree 100%. In that post, you go on to talk a little bit about empathy. And I think there's a statement in there about you feel with them. You feel what they're feeling. And I think sometimes people mistake empathy for sympathy, which is disconnected. Like, I'm sorry that's happening to you. Go do what you need to do. What
Yeah.
you're talking about is, hey, we want to join with you and support you, and you do what you need to do, and we're here and we'll
Yeah.
take care of things until you're back. That's so
Yes.
powerful.
Yeah, we've had situations where we've had employees that have come down. I mean, I've had a employee come down with cancer
Mm-hmm.
and we pay them their salary all the way through everything. We don't stop. We don't care about any of that stuff. We support them throughout the way. I mean, there's so many things that have happened with individuals with our company getting a bad diagnosis, and we never stop doing anything, even if they're not here. We just continue on. The payments continue, the support continues, and we're checking in on them. This stuff matters, and they come back, and you can just, that's a story, right? And we share those stories all the time. And actually, they share it with their own mouths every time we have the state of the company, because we open it up for core value stories or purpose stories. And I think it's really impactful when our employees hear other employees talking about, like, hey, like, this really happened. Like, my child had this issue, and like, they just gave me like a week off and they still paid me for it. Employees are not taking advantage of us. We're having employees, because when they come back, they crush it. It's just that things go on in your life. And as a company, we can be there for our people. We have that choice. And when we are, not only is it the right thing to do, but it also just, again, it works for everybody, because the rest of the team steps up. And then when they get back, we're excited to see them. And then let's go back to work and
That's right.
let's enjoy it.
Not that this is related to that, but it makes me think of a question. How do you and your company handle mistakes? Somebody makes a glaring error. There are challenges, blunders. How do you address those?
It's everything. Mistakes are okay. Make them, learn from them. It's okay. So that's the way we deal with it. You don't want to make the same mistake 7 times in a row, but our people are smart. They don't. People don't. People genuinely want to do a good job at work. And so they don't. But mistakes happen. We all make mistakes. Like, I literally misspelled "there" on a whiteboard the other day on one of my posts. It's like a mistake. I'm an idiot. I can't spell. It's okay. And when our employees make a mistake, it's like, it's okay. We all make mistakes, because again, it goes back to the humanity. We're all human. We all make these mistakes. Just learn from them, man. Just get better. And we do, but that's just the culture. That's the mentality.
Yes.
Hey, you're going to make a mistake. No big deal. Just learn from it. Just try not to make it again. Maybe you make it a second time. That's okay, but you're not going to make it a third. And they never do make it a third. It's just like one or two times, and it's really not that big of a deal.
Well, and I think that contributes to psychological safety. That is the soil that you do all these other things in to build your healthy organization. But it's about creating a space for learning, like you just described. Okay, I can't step over this one. It's a post you made about why the Dallas Cowboys are flawed. And I just want to say the 3 things you mentioned are lack of vision, lack of accountability, and only one voice.
Yeah.
So you've kind of spoken to this idea of vision, and people need to read your newsletter and some of your posts about vision to fully grasp how that began. And you talked about it too in the beginning, how it began to drive and build your culture. But what about accountability? And what's this thing about only one voice?
When you talk about accountability, what we've learned is that people want to be held to an account. They do. Like, accountability is really a great way to teach. And it's like, we all need that person that's going to be like, hey, you good? Like, I've noticed, this is kind of going on. Or we didn't hit our numbers. Let's sit down and figure out why together. This is not do your job. I'm the boss yelling at you because you need to get better. It's like, no, let's sit down and try to figure this out. But we have to hold ourselves accountable, because that's the only way we're ever going to drive results. And accountability is a very healthy thing. It's not just like a free for all. No, we have leaders here, and these leaders, they hold their people accountable. Hey, man, like, you got to get here on time. And it's a good thing to be held accountable to. Of course, things happen in life and you can't get here on time. But genuinely speaking, there's certain rules in life. Accountability is such a big deal. We always want that person that's going to hold us accountable in our life to a higher standard, because it makes us better. And that's what leaders are really there for. Like, the leaders are there to set that standard and then to hold the other people, all their employees accountable to that thing. But just to know that like, hey, we're all in this together. We're a team, but me as the leader, I'm here to hold you guys accountable. And it's a conversation, right? It's not a quick whip. It's not a, hey, you're late. What are you thinking? It's a, hey man, let's talk in the conference room and let's just sit down and have a good conversation of what's going on in your life. And let me just have this, let's just talk. And sitting down and doing it in that regard, having a healthy conversation. I love you. I'm here for you. What's going on? Because I'm noticing this different type of action that I'm not used to. Maybe there's something that's going on in your life. This is what we're talking about. And so accountability is obviously a big deal. And having one voice, when we're talking about the Cowboys, and I was talking about like Jerry Jones, and it's all really just one voice from the top, but great companies, everybody has a voice and everybody can make an impact. We stress this all the time with Courageously Candid, but we stress this all the time in our leadership teams. Every single one of our branches has a branch leadership team, and they meet every single 90 days to talk about, basically what's working, what's not working. They get in the same room and they create big priorities for the next quarter and whatnot, but it is a bunch of voices. We want them to argue. We want them to debate, but they're debating for the right answer, not their answer, right? It's not ego. It's not like, I want my answer. And this is coaching. We have to coach them on this. What's the very best answer for the organization? What's the very best answer for this team to get there? It takes a lot of humility and a lot of vulnerability. But what we've noticed too is getting it off your chest and voicing yourself is so much of everything, right?
Sure.
And then we make that decision. And no matter what, the team leader makes that decision. We walk out of that room hand in hand, no matter what, even if we disagree with that, that's a really healthy team. But you cannot have one voice that makes all decisions. Jim Collins talks about the genius with 1,000 helpers model. It only works as long as that person is a genius. But what happens if they're no longer a genius or they die? Everything else falls down below them. And so I've seen this in so many companies, right? You've got that big CEO or that owner of that family business. Everything runs through them. Everything goes, they make every decision. They have to be touched, like they have to be CC'd on everything. What we've realized here is the power in like, no way. We have this accountability chart and we push this stuff down. You make these decisions. And these are big $1 million decisions. And we got people making these decisions and they always make the right ones. It really frees us up to scale. It really frees us up to create more leaders, but it's having those voices and giving our people the autonomy to be able to use those voices. And sometimes they make mistakes like we talked earlier, but a lot that they always learn. But one thing we do as a company is we always grow and we always level up.
So powerful. I mean, there's a lot in there. You talked about the one-to-one conversations. You talk about that quite a bit in your posts.
Yeah.
It's a relationship linchpin for the healthy organization you're talking about.
I would love to talk about that for a second. So I really quickly, every single one of our employees every 90 days gets a one-on-one with their boss.
Yeah.
This is usually offsite, sometimes in the conference room, but it is all about, hey, what's working? What's not working? It is not a performance review. There's not a piece of paper with a bunch of check this, check this. It's not a bunch of that stuff. It's not about the gesture. It is about the substance of the conversation. How are you doing? How's life at home? How are the kids? Okay, let's talk about work for a little while. Let's talk about what's working and what's not working. Tell me some things. And then it's a flip side. Actually, the employee tells the boss what's working and what's not working, right? Some humble pie there because they open up and say anything. This is so healthy for us as an organization because it's that thing. It's like my wife and I have to go on a date. We got to go on date night. We got to reconnect and remember like why we're in love. And, before the kids, right? Before we have these 3 crazy young kids, like we got to remember about us. And when we sit down and we have that date night and we leave, that dinner, we feel so close to each other and we're holding hands and we're just back. And it's like, that is so much needed. It's so healthy. It is no different for your employees. And imagine if you are an employee and you literally don't sit one-on-one with your boss, like ever, like let's say it goes a year and you never sit down with them. You have no idea if you're doing good, if you're doing bad, if they're like, think of the anxiety that causes in your life. And so every 90 days, we're intentional about this all throughout the company. And it is extremely healthy because all of our people are like, man, I know where I am. I have a great relationship with my boss. Like we're having real conversations. Some of these quarterly conversations are tough, because things are going on, in their life. Sometimes they're really easy and it's just like a really fun time. But it is something that they have to connect, and those hour, and usually it's an hour and a half to 2 hours, and it's a lot of time spent, and we understand it, but we wouldn't have it any other way because again, it's so healthy and it's so needed. Employees, we all need that connection.
Yeah. And connection is the emphasis. I know feedback, we always say feedback is the oxygen of engagement, but feedback is helpful. It's the relationship, and they're spending time together. They're deepening understanding of one another. I think that's probably the only way you can create a culture where there can be candor. That is
Yes.
one of your values. How do you say that? You say courageously candid.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for people to be able to do that, they have to know how you roll, and you only do that over time.
Yeah.
I would say. So all these things that you talk about are so powerful. They're simple, but they're not easy. What can you share, Chad, about what you do to bring yourself to the table every day with this mindset? I'm sure there's a practice or there's some things you do because you're human. I mean, I'm sure you have your emotional ups and downs and the things that trigger you and the frustrations and whatever. So help our leaders understand just a little bit about how you show up. How do you bring yourself to the table every day to be able to be this kind of a leader?
Yeah. Personally, what I've noticed about myself is when I wake up early in the morning and I have that quiet time and I am reading, for me, it's reading. And it's usually reading a culture book. And it sounds crazy, but I'm usually, even if it's something that I've read before, I'm rereading. It's not just always company culture, but it's something about company health. And Patrick Lencioni is my favorite author when you talk about company health. And he wrote The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. And he's written some amazing books.
I knew you were a fan because there's about 10 things you've said. I'm like, well, Patrick Lencioni would say, yes, 100%.
Obsessed.
We're big disciples of his framework. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely obsessed.
Yeah.
And so I'm reading his books, and Seth Godin's got the Songs of Significance now, and I'm reading his book, and this time that I have in the morning, right before the kids wake up, and it's gotten earlier and earlier, but for everybody it's different. For me, it has been getting myself in a book early to start the day. Then I walk in with that mindset. I got to always continue to go back to why. Like, I'm always thinking about this, right? Why do we exist as an organization? Work doesn't have to suck. Healthy teams. And one thing that I did personally, or we did as a team personally, but we run on EOS, the Entrepreneur Operating System, and I'm what's called the visionary. And we have an integrator, and our integrator, Jacob Meidel, is fantastic, but he runs the day-to-day of the organization. He runs everything, all the branch managers, he runs the executive leadership team. I mean, he is that. I am able to spend 90% of my time focusing on purpose, values, stories, writing, putting up stuff on LinkedIn. And so it gets my mind in that framework where I'm really focusing on this stuff 90% of my time. And so when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, okay, what can I do today that is going to promote work doesn't have to suck, or one of our values, right? What can I say? What can I write on LinkedIn? What can I email to the guys? What can I do? Who do I need to call? Who do I need to text message? We don't encourage enough. Mark Connolly, one of my greatest mentors, he said, the praise to criticism ratio needs to be 6-1. Praise, 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 praise. Then we criticize. We cannot praise enough, and the ratio needs to be 6-1. And we know it's not that in business. And so this gives me time to go back through those types of things, right? And when I read something, I think praise, and then I'm like, oh my gosh. And so then I'm writing into my notes. I'm like, I need to praise, Mike in Miami for this. And that stuff really matters. So it's, for me, it's literally just like waking up early and getting my face in a book, but it needs to be one of those types of books. That's what's important to me. And if it's a Jim Collins or a Patrick Lencioni, or I'm reaching out and trying to figure out, something else, like it's usually a book that has to do with company and culture or awareness, something like that. The Untethered Soul I read last year for the very first time, and it changed my life, just about being aware, just anything, but getting myself in a book. That's been the most important thing for me that I've noticed. That's how I work.
Yeah. And that's a ritual. I think it's not a new idea, but that leaders take time and consistently invest that time to settle in, to center, to grow, to learn. So I was curious about how you did that. This has been so incredible. I have like 10 million more questions for you. We will make sure that our listeners have access to your newsletter and your LinkedIn profile. And what's so great about you, Chad, is you're doing this because there is something important to say. And you're not just saying this stuff. I mean, you're right. You're not selling you, you're selling leadership, but it's a way of life for you inside your organization, which makes it authentic and real. And you're a real person. I just want to say thanks for jumping on with us today. It's been awesome.
Yeah.
And I would love to have you back on down the road here a little bit. Could we reconnect?
Oh, of course. Anytime. Work doesn't have to suck has changed my life. And I used to leave here in tears, just thinking about like, when the culture got really good around here, like 3 or 4 years ago, and just seeing the happiness of our employees compared to what it used to be, just the atmosphere that we've created around here. I like to talk about this more than anything else because it's hard to have a meaningful life without meaningful work. I truly believe that. And it's really fun to work with people you love every single day, and it can change lives. And when you see work and an atmosphere that you've created and your company's created, like change lives, it fills your cup up so much. You just want to talk about it to everybody. You just want everybody to do the same, because you're like, man, this can put a dent in the world. This can change lives. This is really, it's all about, because we spend so much time at work. So I'm always down to talk to it. It's something I love so much. Something I'm just so passionate about.
Well, I would say this did not suck at all. And I'm just curious, have you ever talked to Patrick Lencioni?
I haven't. And
you should.
I know. I want to talk to somebody. My buddy Travis got me a signed book when we were having like our second child. I couldn't go to this. I think it was the EOS conference and he was speaking, but he he signed one of the books and was like, hope the birth went good, type of thing, and signed it for me. But man, that guy is he gets it. Company health. He is definitely an inspiration. And I know he is to a lot of people. And I know we model a lot of what we do here off of him.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. I wish you all the best. We will reconnect sometime in the near future. But until then, take care, and we'll see you next time on the Boss Hole Chronicles.
We'd like to thank our guest today on the Boss Hole Chronicles. And if you have a Boss Hole Chronicles story of your own, please email us at mystory@thebossholechronicles.com. Once again, mystory@thebossholechronicles.com. We'll see you again soon.